Cardano is doing something actually really cool here in the crypto world. It is continuing to hold on to this 40-week moving average that we're seeing. And in this video, I want to talk to you about how ADA is actually doing exactly what it needs to be doing, what you should watch out for, what you can be very bullish on, and what the scenarios for bullish and bearishness for Cardano are, so that when we get these violent price swings, you can kind of know how to act. What I am looking at here, and this is all in a very good context. I think Tuesday is going to be, or even right now, is going to be a very interesting time in the market as President Trump says that the United States is going to enact 50% tariffs on the European Union. So definitely on Tuesday, we're going to have to watch and see how Cardano and the crypto market reacts, because the New York Stock Exchange will reopen, and that will have some sell pressure or some weird pressure, I'm sure. So all of this, we know crypto is a 24/7 market, and this is already having taken into account what that could possibly do. Cardano is holding up quite well. Now, it might not feel like it. It might seem like Cardano is falling behind. But what I'm seeing here is very bullish movement from Cardano from a long-term perspective. And I want to show you how Cardano can get bullish from this area. So if you're familiar with my channel, we do stage analysis on this channel. And basically that means we're going to, on the weekly chart, watch the 30 and 40-week moving average. Now, the beautiful thing that Cardano is doing here is, even though it was up here at about 86 cents 2 weeks ago, and now it's at about 74 cents, it is still holding this 40-week moving average. Now, if we scroll back, we can see how over time, we have a 30 and 40 week that Cardano, when it's going up in price, is sitting above, right? When it's going down in price, Cardano is sitting below. And you can see this execution of that right here. Cardano is going up, and then when it crosses the 30 and 40 week, it is falling below. In these lower parts of the bear market, where the bear is switching to a bull market, we can see how price gets choppy and muddy between these two moving averages. With all the uncertainty in the market, obviously right now everything's going to be a little bit more unclear, right? All the tariff issues that we've had in 2025 and all the uncertainty has caused crypto to become very unclear. But you can see here how today Cardano is making its way back above these 30 and 40 week moving averages. It's just taking a little bit longer. And so this price action that we saw back here is happening right here. And the best thing that you can be watching for on Cardano this week, as the market opens on Tuesday, the stock market and all that other market, is watching Cardano play above this 40-week moving average here that is currently sitting at about 70 cents. That is going to be your big piece of support for Cardano. And over the past couple of weeks, Cardano has held it beautifully. That is why I remain bullish on Cardano, and I really think a lot of people should. If Cardano fails to hold that 40-week, we can have a different conversation. But as of right now, that is remaining held. So what happens there? If the market opens, and maybe the market opens lower on Tuesday, Bitcoin and crypto kind of fall a little bit, but then things start to rally. What happens throughout the rest of the week? Well, the big thing I think you should be watching for the rest of the week is this 80-cent level right here. We can see that our 30-week moving average is currently at about 81 cents. And what I honestly want to watch Cardano do is make its way up here and close above this 30-week moving average. So we can imagine that this 30-week moving average is going to continue to cross over here. And last week, we actually got a pretty good move above the 80-cent mark, all the way up to around 84 cents. I really thought Cardano was going to close above the 30-week moving average last week, but it did not. And so we're going to have to wait and see for a week where Cardano decides to close above that 30-week moving average. That is going to be the prime time for when Cardano is going to have to start another move like this, or other moves like this, when it closes above that 30-week moving average in orange. The bullish thing that Cardano could do is, we have this 30-week rolling across here. Cardano could close above it right here. Let's say we have a big candle. Cardano closes right here this week. That would be very bullish. Next week, we would want to see another confirmed close above this 30-week. And if that happened, we'd probably see Cardano over the next couple weeks make its way up here to around this $1.20 level. Now, the bullish scenario is Cardano gets to the $1.20. It makes a cup and then has a little handle or a little spot that it hovers here, and then breaks out on some good volume, maybe some good news. Maybe that's in the late summer, maybe it's in November. Not really sure yet, but that is the bullish scenario, where if Cardano can close above this 30-week moving average, we have a lot of incentive to believe that price is going to come back up here to $1.20 and is going to test that before deciding what does it want to do next. At that point, if Cardano gets to $1.20, it could then come back down and retrace and touch the 30-week moving average again. Maybe it's at about $1 by then, and then come back up to this 120 level again, and decide to break out then. So there's a couple ways that that bullish scenario can play out, but what I'm seeing currently is Cardano holding this 40-week moving average here at about 70 cents and maintaining above it. As long as Cardano is doing that, there's no reason to be scared of what Cardano and crypto is doing. And you can see how other altcoins actually in the crypto market are not holding on as well. They're not holding on to their 30-week moving average. They're not holding on to their 40-week moving average. And Cardano is an outlier in this market as it does hold onto the 40-week moving average. That's my bullish scenario. What is the bearish scenario though? How does Cardano fail to make this move, and what does that mean? Well, the bearish scenario would be this 40-week coming across here and Cardano next week or in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks falling below that 40-week and having a close below the 40-week, whether it's at 70 cents, whether it's at 65 cents, whether it's down here at 50 cents, right? Cardano failing to hold this 40-week moving average, in my opinion, would be a good reason to go ahead and start liquidating a portion of your Cardano position in order to secure some profits. We are seeing this era right now where things like Bitcoin dominance are continuing to rise, right? Bitcoin is continuing to do well in this environment. Altcoins are not doing as well. We can see how Bitcoin dominance did put a high up here at around 65%. And we've had the last 2 weeks of Bitcoin dominance coming up and trying to retest this level. Now, I want to see, is this going to be like a double top zone where Bitcoin double tops and then finally comes back down to the 30 and 40-week moving average before breaking below and giving us an alt season, right? We can see how other altcoins like Ethereum have not been able to do as well. See, Ethereum is below its 30 and 40-week moving average, right? Solana is the same way. Solana had a very good 2024, but you can see how right now it's below its 30 and 40-week moving average. Cardano is kind of one of the last altcoins along with XRP, maybe HBAR is still above, but Cardano is above its 30 or it's above its 40-week moving average right here. And the bearish scenario is Cardano having a weekly close or 1 or 2 weekly closes below that 40-week moving average. If that happened, I think most Cardano holders would benefit from either taking some ADA off the table, moving it back to Bitcoin, or just understanding the risk that is going on. If that were to happen, if Cardano were to break below that 40-week moving average, your next area of support that you should watch for is probably right here at around 60 cents. Somewhere in this level, right here around 60 cents, Cardano could maybe get a double bottom. That would look something like this. Maybe Cardano breaks the 40, gets a double bottom, and then kind of comes back up to test the 40. At that point, if it gets rejected again, you can go ahead and just sell your Cardano or something like that. But basically what we want to see is we want to see this 40-week moving average continue up, this 30-week moving average continue, and Cardano getting above that in order to remain bullish. So far, this market, in 2025, it has had the ability to do that. We had 1 or 2 closes right here below the 40, but very quickly got back above in April of 2025. And so the big question is, can Cardano continue this move upwards? It's going to take a little bit, but continue upwards as crypto is going up, as Bitcoin's going up, and stay above that 30-week moving average. If that can happen, there's a lot of reasons to believe in the future of Cardano. And if Cardano can get back up here to $1.20, I fully expect a price move against this resistance line where Cardano gets squeezed up here before making a massive, 25, 50, 100% move upwards, just like it did right here. We can also put this chart into context with ADA Bitcoin. This is always another good thing to check out here, ADA Bitcoin, and see just how Cardano's faring against Bitcoin. We know that if Cardano can get back up here to around the 5,000 Satoshi level, that would put Cardano around $7.5 to $8 if Bitcoin was worth around $150,000. And so we want Cardano to get back up here to this range, in the upper range of the Bitcoin, ADA Bitcoin pair, right? Right now, we see Cardano consolidating below that 40-week moving average, which it did do last cycle as well. What we want to see for ADA Bitcoin is, I think probably it comes down here and touches this level. You can see last cycle, it did break below that 30 and 40-week moving average, came down, touched this level before heading back up. Maybe Cardano simply needs to do that on the ADA Bitcoin pair, needs to come down, touch about this 500 Satoshi level before heading back up. It doesn't have to repeat perfectly, but it does kind of look like ADA is correcting against Bitcoin. The big thing you want to see is ADA Bitcoin getting back above that 30-week moving average. Once that happens, we can expect ADA to start chipping away at the block against Bitcoin, and the same thing is true with ADA dominance. You can see how last cycle, again, Cardano did come back in and test this 30 and 40-week moving average, had a couple weeks close of like a shakeout below on the ADA dominance chart, and then you can see how today Cardano is kind of doing the same thing. Kind of had this one cut through, this second cut through. Maybe ADA dominance is having a little bit of a shakeout before it comes back up above the 30-week moving average, and then we'll start to head back up here to around 4%. So all good things on Cardano. What I'm looking at, what I think is this move is not to be feared. I don't think this is something that we can watch over the next week or two or three, maybe into June. How does Cardano play with this 40-week and this 30-week moving average? Above the 30-week, that's really bullish. In between the 30 and 40, that means it's not bad, but it's not great. Below the 40 means that it's getting bearish, and we should try to reevaluate our position. That's exactly what I think is going on with Cardano. Cardano's still hanging in there and still fighting much harder than a lot of other altcoins, which I think is very good. You don't have to make the analysis much more complicated than that. If you enjoyed the video, you like the Cardano content, please drop a like, subscribe, and a comment down below if you really have any questions or anything like that. I'd be happy to answer them.